Hey, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of the Hemmings Hot Rod Barbecue Podcast. On this episode, we welcome back Ryan Douthit of Driving Sports TV, our resident new car SUV expert and reviewer. If you haven't gone to Driving Sports TV on YouTube, you are missing out. So head over there, watch the reviews, because I'll be honest, he's honest, kick-ass at what he does, and, subscribe. So, dude, how you doing, man?
I am doing great. For the last week, I've been driving a Hummer truck EV. And, you feel like you're somebody special when you're driving something that obnoxious.
So let me ask you right out of the gate, what does that weigh? Because it is an enormous vehicle.
It's about 9,500.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It's a beast. And the thing, you look at this thing, it's a big square. It looks like it's just the child runner over 5,000 because it has that big front maw on the
yeah.
It's just so absurd. But the thing, after driving it a week, you got to remember this was the very first GM Ultium platform vehicle.
Yeah.
It is basically, they built essentially what was a show car prototype and then just sold it to the public. So, you can kind of excuse the audacity from that perspective, because, it's just such a ridiculous vehicle, but they put so much interesting, good, weird tech into it. Like, first off, the charging is super fast on that thing. If you can find a 350 kilowatt charger, which are not that common, but if you're at one of the DC fast charges and they have the faster of the faster charges, you can recharge that entire 350 mile range battery in I think we did it in 40-50 minutes.
That's impressive.
Nothing to 90% is whoa.
Yeah.
But charging, you do a lot of it. So I had it in my head that I wanted to do an overlanding adventure with an EV at some point.
Yeah.
And then this one got on the schedule, and we're right in between snowstorms in our mountains. So the snow had kind of melted a little, refrozen. Yeah. And so I scheduled that we were going to do this overlanding kind of, obviously this isn't a multi-day thing. We just want to kind of go out there, kind of experience the environment, see how well the vehicle does in the environment. And I happened to pick it on the coldest day in the last 2 years. It was 10 degrees, I think, when we started. And then
that's kind of great, because talk about how the cold affects an EV, because I know it does, especially when you're running your heated seats and everything else.
But, when you're dealing with a vehicle that has a 350 mile range, keeping in mind it's a 9,500 pound. So, just imagine, if you could, the Hummer EV as it is has 350 miles of range.
Right.
You took off the chunky mud terrain tires, if you gave it an aerodynamic profile, if you didn't maybe make it weigh 9,500 pounds, although I understand a lot of that's the batteries, electronics, that thing would probably have 400 to 450 miles of range.
Yeah, but then it wouldn't be a Hummer, right? Know, if you took off all the Hummer stuff.
Yeah, well, no, then it would be a Silverado, which they're coming out with. So, because the new Silverado EV is this truck essentially, but with an aerodynamic thing and without mud terrain tires standard. And that thing should get ridiculous mileage as well. But the point being is that when you have a battery that's already doing 350 miles of range with such a ridiculous profile, you don't worry about things like your seat warmers. It's not, that was eking out the last mile wasn't even a concern for us on this trip.
Really?
Yeah. We thought we did have range anxiety, because we're driving into the mountains. We need to get back. We'll need to charge before we go back to the Seattle area. Because it was 100 miles before we even got on the trail, And so you are thinking, you're doing that mental math in your head. And you're like, okay, if we get back to Ellensburg, it'll be fine. We'll charge up, we'll go back. And so we went into the mountains, we came back, we hit Ellensburg with about 80 miles of range left on the vehicle. And we had charged it up to 80% in North Bend. That's 80 miles, and then into the mountains, and then back out of the mountains. And then we had 86 miles left on the vehicle.
Okay.
And then this is where the whole EV lifestyle thing kind of hits you in the neck. So there's this level 3 charging station with a 350 kilowatt charger in Ellensburg, or at least there has been for the last 2 years. Electrify America decided to completely remodel the entire station, and they took out all the chargers and they put in new chargers, and none of them were turned on.
That's amazing. Like, so what if you're an EV consumer and your little EV thing on your screen says there's a charging station, and you get there with say you get there with 5% left and it doesn't work, you're screwed.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, what do you do at that point?
The one thing I have to say is that if you actually look on the Electrify America app, you will see that it is coming soon as listed in the app. I have been going to this charging station for 2 years. I've never had a problem with this charging station. I understand a terminal may be out. It may not be functioning, but there's always a terminal next to it. You usually can at least get a 50 kilowatt. Yeah. You can at least get something. The fact that they just completely raised the entire station, build a new one, didn't even bother. Do you know where the closest, not even Electrify America, okay, so the math here, the station that we had charged up with that morning in North Bend was 80 miles away. Our car had 86 miles left on the range, and we had to go over a mountain pass, which really messes with your mileage because you're hauling a 9,000 pound vehicle up a mountainside. Sure. So I was not comfortable with that. So we had to go to the closest charger. Now, this is actually where it gets a little even weirder. We looked at other Electrify America or anything that we knew would be a high capacity charger. Yeah. And the closest one was in Yakima, which is 37 miles away, the wrong direction. And then I looked up, I'm like, okay, what if we just did 50 miles? No, sorry. What if we just found a 50 kilowatt just to top off, get us 10 extra miles? So there's a Shell recharge. I don't know if you know that's a thing. Shell gas stations have a recharge, like charging station things. So I went to this charging station. I swear it was probably built 20 years ago. It had the worst interface. I had to download their app, give them all my personal information, and then load a credit card, and none of them worked. It just didn't work. And so eventually we sighed and we went to Yakima in a Walmart parking lot for 40 minutes. And at which point 200, we had like 300 miles on the car at that point. We just drove all the way back home.
Okay. So you had to drive essentially, I'm going to say 40 miles out of your way.
80
miles.
Round trip,
80 miles. Okay. So that's 2 hours.
And I don't want to say, now the one thing that a lot of people will say is that's a problem with EVs. No, I say that's a problem with companies like Electrify America who don't take business seriously. There's nothing to say that they can't leave 2 terminals and remodel half of it and then flip it over. Maybe it's not efficient for them. I don't care. It's critical infrastructure. On that, I could, by the way, if we had just gone to, we had the mileage to go to Cle-Elum, and in Cle-Elum is a Tesla station, which I know was functioning and is big. And has chargers. As much crap as I give Tesla, they got their charging game down. They understand. There's no cars without the chargers.
Well, let me ask you.
I don't want to take it away from the Hummer though, because that is not Hummer's fault.
Right.
I would agree.
How was the vehicle itself? Right. So like you took it out, and I think I've seen one on the road so far. Yeah. So what was the public perception of the Hummer? Did they like it? Did they not like it? Was it,
everybody loved it. Like
they did.
Non-car people loved it.
Okay.
It was car people that gave it crap. Like all the people I know who are like reviewers or people who like, I like my old Dodge Hemis,
whatever.
Sorry, Mike.
No, that's fine. Me.
So the guys who purport to be car enthusiasts are the guys that give a crap. They're like, this doesn't make any sense. This is ridiculous. You get these on the streets. You're going to be mauling kids over. How many of these are they actually going to make? How many are they going to actually sell? They're not even going to register as a half of a quarter of a nth of a % of total sales. There's not going to be a lot of these out here. Do you complain when you see a Unimog go by? You're like, that's awesome. That is amazing. It's the same thing. It's just an electric one. It's ridiculous. Nobody needs to drive a Unimog. Nobody needs to drive a Hummer. Both are awesome. Sorry.
Right.
And
listen, it's a fair point.
I hated the Tahoe-based Hummers. I thought those were stupid, because you take like the military spec vehicle, you take all the bad parts with it and you put it on a Tahoe.
Right.
and charge more money. That I thought was ridiculous. So I'm not like a Hummer fanboy at all. In fact, when I got this vehicle, I thought I was going to hate it. But the fact is
well, that's good though.
Yeah,
that's good though. I mean, you review, hundreds of cars. So I mean, the fact of the matter is, if you were able to get into it and you could see the bright sides of it, and it was fun to drive, and it was enjoyable,
it was
fine. Then that's it.
And I'll tell you, my 13-year-old son, I always say, like, when we drive him into school in the morning. He's about 10, 15 minutes away for a drive. Every morning, I'm like, what car do you want to take? Because we always have cars at the house. And he's always like, we're taking the Hummer.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's a great barometer though, right? To see what he likes, to see what his friends like. And especially that's literally what they're going to grow up with, right? By the time they start driving in a couple of years, they'll still be petrol and hybrids, but EVs will be so much more mainstream. Yeah. Where guys like us, where we were like, what the hell is an EV? 15 years ago, but that's good. That's very good.
It's an interesting vehicle. Now there are a few things that, like the party pieces of it. It has what's called the WTF mode, the watts to freedom. Yeah. I don't know what you were thinking, but it's the watts to freedom mode. That is kind of nuts. If you ever had to do a 0 to 60 and you had to do an engagement, so basically WTF, you double toggle down on the traction control. You get the sound effects wrapping around. You go to
oh my God.
And you get the graphics up on the display, and the vehicle lowers and it primes all the systems.
Right.
Unleash 11,500 foot-pounds of torque.
Is that really true?
Yes.
11,500.
I don't know how they did the math, but that's what they claim. That's what they're standing by. They're like, that's what you get. Okay. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to argue. And it will move that 9,500 pound without people behemoth 0 to 60 in 3 seconds.
See, that's nuts.
It is. I had my neighbor hop in with me. He's in his mid to late 80s. I don't want to embarrass him.
Oh God, did you give him a heart attack?
Well, he's a car guy. Actually, he used to race motorcycles, and he maintains motorcycles. He's like the local lawnmower maintenance guy now because he deals with small engines and he loves them, and he hates electrics. He's like, oh, you always have all those electrics. And so him and another neighbor were both admiring the Hummer, and they're like, wow, that's really amazing. I'm like, let's get in. I've never done that.
Let's go for a ride.
Let's do it. So we went out onto a desolate closed course highway,
of course,
and we engaged the system, and they're all looking really nervous, and I'm like, Bob, before I release the gas pedal here, why don't you just go ahead and put your head on the headrest there? Yeah, I don't want to give you neck damage. And he kind of looked at me and he's like, okay. Yeah. And then when we unleashed it, it was holy hell. It's pretty impressive. It's kind of like, doing 0 to 60 in a Plaid. It's kind of like you do it once and you're like, okay, that's good.
I mean, it's a party trick, which is fun. Exactly. I mean, it's a party trick.
It is. Now, that vehicle also has a ton of off-road stuff, but it has some weirdness about the off-road stuff. Obviously, it comes with these chunky mud terrains. It has air suspension, so you can get really high up. But there's some clearance issues in weird places. So it's kind of like when you go out with this vehicle, you kind of have to unlearn everything you know about off-roading. It's all very different. And the problem,
what size tires does it run?
I think they're 36s or 35s, somewhere around there.
35s. Okay.
They're big. Okay. I know my friend Roman just put 37s on his. He bought one. Okay. And they went to Moab instantly.
Right.
But this vehicle has some. So first off, the clearances are weird because you have a good approach angle, but on the back underneath, normally when you're off-roading, you're kind of watching where your rear diff is. And that your only clearance issue is where the bed is sticking out of the back. That's called a departure angle for those. Well, the departure angle, neither of those were a problem. The problem was there's this big piece hanging off behind the differential that I kept whacking on things because I'm like, oh, we're good. Good chunk.
Right.
What the heck? What did I just say? That's not a thing on normal cars.
Right.
But then also the 4-wheel steering. So I'm just going to illustrate here. So
I mean, do you think? Let me ask you this before we go into the steering.
Yeah.
How many of Hummer EV owners do you honestly think will take them off road? Do you think it's going to be one of those things like, we're going to take it off road once just to do it and then that's it?
Well,
or do you think these things are going to be like long crawlers?
I know two people. Anecdotally, I know two people who own these vehicles. One is a casual person I just ran into. I don't actually know him, but it's a guy I've met and I talked with him and I kind of got his story. And then the other guy is Roman, who owns an off-road channel. So 50% of all people I know will drive their Hummers off.
Okay, fair enough.
I have no idea. Well, but if you're not going to take it, I guess you would get it for the looks. Anyway, I don't know how many people are going to take it off. Probably not many, but many might do it once.
Yeah,
possibly. It's because of that 350-mile range. I think it's probably the most serious off-road vehicle. Also, all the stuff it has: front locker, back locker.
Okay.
It's yeah. So we actually did our off-road testing with it yesterday. So I'm still processing it in my head. And normally when you're doing off-roading, you're like, okay, well, here's a tree. Here's the vehicle next to the tree. I'm getting too close to the tree. I turn away from the tree, right?
Right.
You have to watch the clearance of the bed as it swings around behind the tires, but that's all you worry about. Well, when you're doing four-wheel steering, the whole vehicle is rotating. And if you just turn right, you're going to whack that tree. So you have to it's like all the stuff that you just do naturally, you can't. You got to think through everything because it's all very different. And the vehicle has four-wheel steering. Normally, you can turn that off if you remember to. But it actually turns more when you're in the off-road modes. It'll turn those wheels even more. So again, you're used to turning in regular every day, but now you're in off-road mode. Now it's more extreme. So it's, and then also it doesn't have a proper low range, but what does have a low range? An electric car. Electric cars don't even have gearboxes really. So now you're also dealing with a really, really slow crawl mode, which is awesome, but there's no gears. It's like, and you can't really feel anything because nothing's physically connected to anything. And I think that's probably the biggest issue.
Do you think the majority, so when you talk about this, because there have to be and I have yet to be in one, there are so many modes and so much new technology that go into these things. There's a lot. So is it one of those things where, do you think the owners that do buy these things are going to do a deep dive into everything and learn it like they would learn their iPhone or learn it like they would use whatever the case is? None of them.
It has the Unreal Engine. Do you ever do gaming? Unreal is a gaming platform with graphics. And then the Unreal Engine has been licensed out. It was originally the Unreal game, and then they licensed out the 3D universe to other things. Anyway, the graphics on the main tablet, on the main display, are all Unreal Engine. So when you're switching between your drive modes, you get this picture of, like, when you go to tow mode, it shows the Hummer pulling a Saturn V rocket,
Right, of course. What is the tow capacity of that?
7,500 pounds, which isn't bad. It's an EV. You're not going to tow distance, but if you're driving like from your house 30 miles up the street to a boat launch, it's fine. It's fine.
Right.
I'm not going to, a lot of people, it seems like people are using these. I see a lot of my fellow journalists constructing these impossible scenarios, or let's just say not impossible, like potential scenarios, but not likely actual use cases.
Absolutely.
I can't tow my boat from Washington State to California and then go launch it. It's like, nobody does that.
No, nobody does that. The boat ramp is probably 15 miles from your house.
At the most.
Right, exactly. Well, and that's the whole thing, right? When I think that when people do this, they have to look at it as, what do you use your vehicle for? What do you use your Silverado for? What do you use your F-150 for? Because if you're a long range driver, not for you, right? But if you're doing the majority of what 99% of the people use their pickup truck, it'll probably do just fine.
And the thing I love, it's like, nobody's forcing anybody to buy this vehicle. If it doesn't fit the lifestyle that you have, in whatever real or fake scenarios you see yourself doing, you say like, oh yeah, I'm driving the Hummer EV. Oh yeah, but could you drive to Washington to Moab and then go off-roading and then drive home? When was the last time you did that? Now, granted, some people will say, I did it last week, and that's great. Not the vehicle for you. I mean, it's easy. And right now we are at the, nobody should complain about the vehicles that are offered. You can complain about pricing and availability, because those are two major issues. Everything's super expensive, hard to get maybe what you want. But we are in the golden age of just vehicles. We have early
no
EVs
question.
where people are just throwing stuff at the wall to go like, hey, what if we did tank turns? Can we do tank turns? Yeah, we can. Let's put that in. Why? Because it's awesome. And then on the other hand, you have your Durango with a Hellcat engine in it.
Right. I mean, yeah. No, well, I mean, that's the thing. There is, it's like going to a menu at Cheesecake Factory, right? That menu is, and I am not a fan of that restaurant. However, I am, it always cracks me up if I do end up going and the menu is 14 pages long.
I know.
They literally have, it's like, wait a minute. So I can get a Caesar salad with roast duck and octopus. Like, what are you doing here? You know what I mean? And I think to your point, everything is available now. And it's almost one of those things where if the engineers were like, well, if we can dream it, we can do it. And they actually can now. Right. And that's the crazy part. So as a consumer, you look at stuff and you go, well, what do I really do? What do I really need as a consumer? Do I need all this gadgetry? Do I need all this stuff? And I mean, listen, you know me, I'm as simple. I like things as simple and basic as possible. Right.
Yeah.
But that fits my lifestyle. Like, I don't need to go into a car and figure out how to do something. I just want to do it, To
that point, when we did our ice road, so we filmed 2 episodes with this vehicle. We did an ice road overlanding trip, and then we also did an off-road test. In the off-road test, it was confusing. I didn't know what half the time I was doing with any vehicle. I want to pretend like I knew what I was talking about, but I'm lying. I have absolutely no idea what was going on with that thing. I'm like, this knob does, I have no idea, but the vehicle's completely different now. But when we did the overlanding ice road, I kept it in normal. I didn't change a single setting the entire day. There was no need to, because it is incredibly capable as it is. And I think that's important to, it's actually in some ways easier than some full-size trucks to drive, because some full-size trucks even have a low-range gearbox. And I hate to say it, but a lot of people don't know when to engage that.
No, they don't. That's right.
With this one being an all-wheel drive, you don't have to worry about it. It basically says, oh, you're slipping. Let's stop that slipping. It's like, oh, okay, that's good. Until we start sliding backwards down a hill, which
So I'll throw this out there. 9,500 pounds.
Yeah.
You get that moving. That's a lot of momentum to stop. If you're driving on terrain like mud or snow.
Ice.
That's a lot of weight, or ice. So
yeah,
how is that weight? And listen, we've driven, a Silverado has got to be 6,000 pounds, right?
They're not lightweight by any measure.
But 9,500 pounds, it's
the technology does an amazing job of covering that mass. When you're driving on cement with the active air suspension and all the other stuff working against, to make the driving experience, working against that weight, it makes the driving experience very good every day. But there's certain points in your life where you're sliding down the backside of a hill, and you're gaining momentum. You're not slowing, you're getting faster. And that happened on Monday to me. It's a little terrifying, because you're like, I've never had to deal with this level of mass in constant motion where I do not have control of the vehicle. And it's unnerving. Now, you have to respect it. Obviously, you can't just go. So like, some people are going to watch the video, as they always do, and they're like, why aren't you driving quicker? It's like, because if I start sliding, I need to be able to control what's happening.
That's right.
9,500 pounds. Oh yeah, I'm going slower.
That's right. Well, that's people that have 90% have never driven in inclement weather, so they don't understand, right? Yeah. It's like telling somebody, it's like, well, when if you go off the track on a racetrack and you hit the grass, you'll probably just go slower. No, you just hit ice.
Pirouette. And like,
oh yeah,
they were pirouetting for so long. Like, other people came and watched, and they're like, you think he's going to hit the wall? I don't know. Hey, Bob, come on over here. Hey, what's going on? That guy, he's spinning over there. You think he's, and he hit the wall. Okay.
Right.
Hope he's okay.
What, I mean, what's the price of the Hummer? What did that thing sticker at?
That thing. Okay. So the one they sent us was the Edition 1, which was the fully loaded, first off the production line, the only one you could buy when you first could buy it. And it was $110,000, which,
you know what?
I don't think is bad.
That doesn't sound, listen, I just tested an Escalade V Series, and it was $149,000.
And this thing is faster.
You know what? That's not
It's
bad.
not bad. It's not bad. You know, it's
See,
like,
and I want to throw this out there before everybody
don't
yells
you
at us.
don't you feel kind of like a toolbox saying, oh yeah,
Yes.
$110,000
Well,
for that's fine. But it's true.
This is the problem with the world we live in, right? Like,
Yeah.
I can't go out and buy $110,000 car. You know what I mean? That's an enormous amount of money.
Oh, you'd have to sell your Daytona.
I'd have to sell a lot more. You know,
that's not happening.
It's one of those things where we've been, you know, the manufacturers have bumped prices to the point where even the shittiest of cars is literally the cheapest car you could buy is probably 23 grand at this point.
If that, you wouldn't want that. That's going to be garbage. I hate to say
it. But the mean price of a car is, 38 to 44 grand.
Yeah.
And that's a big number, right? So when we talk about things like a fully loaded Hummer for 110, it's insane now. Like a base 911 is 120 grand or 118 grand. Right.
Well,
when you look at things like
universe,
even a Camry, right?
Yeah,
if it used to be you could go out and get a Camry for kind of mid-20s and that was great. Camrys now you get a halfway decent Camry, that's 38 to 40 grand.
Yeah, and the way the dealers, because of delivery, because of stock constraints, nobody's bringing in the cheap ones. They're all bringing in the fully loaded models. It's like
that's
you
exactly
guys are having a chip shortage, which allows you to not have all the features. So what you're going to do is put more chips into the top end trims and only sell those. What? But it's the ones they make money on. So it's a business use case. So there is a couple of things I want to say about the Hummer. It is 110. I believe it's going to be. So this year, and their website's already updated to show the new models, but they're going to have a wide range of trims available on this thing, starting with the rear wheel drive version. And with different ranges and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if they all have 1,000 horsepower, but that's the one. What I had was a 3-motor 1,000 horsepower. But because I usually only read all the specs on the one that I'm actually driving. Future products. But anyway, there's going to be a rear wheel drive model. I think they're going to start in the high 80s, somewhere around there, and then go up from there. And then the Edition 1 that I just drove, it's not called the Edition 1 this year for 2023, but it's basically the same thing with a different name, and you can get different colors. The Edition 1s were all white, so now you can get various colors. So that still will be available. And then they also have an SUV version coming, which I'm actually pretty excited about.
I'd be excited. So here's the thing, like everybody has to have a pickup truck right now. Like I don't buy that. Like I don't like them. I just don't have a use for one. Right. So like when the Rivian came out, I was like, that's great looking. I wish it was an SUV. And then they came out with the SUV and I'm like, that's perfect. I really like the way that looks. The size is right. So I'm actually really happy to hear that Hummer's coming out with that.
I think for the buyer of these type of vehicles, obviously trucks, great. You got to have a truck. But and I have to say the truck had bed liner and a step up and all that. It was actually nicely configured. It would be useful if for a lifestyle truck, a 5-foot bed is fine. I know you can't put in like a massive piece of, I don't know my lumbering terms, so I'm not going to even try.
Yeah, I'm not building a house. It doesn't matter.
You don't lumber house build with this. But as sales of trucks have shown, you don't always need to put a long bed to sell a truck. 5-foot beds are fine for lifestyle people. And I'm one of those people. I just need to be able to put rocks and parts and tires and whatever. But I think that when they go with the SUV, I think those ones are going to be a volume seller actually for them. I mean, because you compare this to anything petrol on the market at that price range. I mean,
pretty good.
It's pretty good, and it really comes down to, it's not the looks, it's not any of the headline features really, other than the fact that it has 350 miles of range, the fastest charging architecture on the planet right now, of a viable product, and it's just, it's the core of it that makes sense. And if you don't like the goofy Hummer look, fine, get the Silverado, which looks pretty good too. And that'll be out later this year. I don't know what the pricing is. It'll be probably about the same for the high-end models. But
so one of the things, I want to move from the Hummer now, because I watched one of the other videos that you have on the channel. And this is a vehicle that was really interesting. I had seen one a few weeks ago, and I was like, and I had never seen one before because it kind of slipped under the radar. And it's another EV, but it was the Genesis GV60.
Oh yeah.
And so I saw that and I was like, you know what? That's a good, like, I'm going to give Hyundai and Kia full props. because they are, if you guys have never thought about looking at Hyundai and Kia as manufacturers, you need to, because they are crushing it right now.
And I think they are doing EVs almost better than anybody in
so
general, across the board right now.
Yeah. So I saw this GV60, and at first I was like, what the hell is that? And then I rolled up on it. What a great looking vehicle.
Yes, on the outside. I don't care for the inside, but that's personal taste.
I'm assuming it shares architecture with the Ioniq. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's the same as the Ioniq and the EV6, the Kia EV6.
So talk a little bit about the Genesis GV60. And for those that know, Genesis is the luxury brand of Hyundai. Been around for a while right now. They make really nice cars.
I've driven all three of those vehicles too. I just actually had the EV6 GT, which is the fast version of that.
Okay.
And basically all of the comments apply to all three because they're all basically the same car.
Yeah.
There's just going to be some numbers differences. But I really I am not a huge fan of Hyundai/Kia's all-wheel drive systems in general. I find that they have good bullet points, but in actual use, they have a tendency to want to overheat. Can't really push them that hard. They don't push power around very much. You talk to their PR people and they're like, oh, the trail modes are great. And you try them and you're like, no, they're not compared to anything else. But then once you get into the all-wheel drive systems in their electrics, where they have a dedicated front and rear motor, they will let you completely turn off traction control on those things, which is nuts. Talk about a gravel machine gun. You hit throttle, got to watch out with the people behind you if you're on gravel, because you are going to be you're embedding rocks into the walls with those things. It is the wheels just spin at full speed. It's so cool. They're fast. They have really quick charging architectures. The pricing is good. I think you're looking at 60s, but again, never have to buy a drop of petrol for the rest of your life. They all have great ranges. In fact, what was it? The new I forget the model number. Kia has a new one coming out. It was just approved by the EPA. What was it? It's like 370 miles of range.
See, that's great.
Tested out as. I'm like, now we're getting there. We're getting to like actual range of petrol cars.
Well, so that works, because a perfect example. Like I had to drive down to LA last week, and I took the Durango down there, and it's a Durango Hellcat, right? So like when you're on the highway at 85 miles an hour, you're pulling like 14, 15 miles to the gallon, depending on your right foot.
Yeah.
But it's got a big tank. It's got a 24-gallon tank.
Exactly. So you compensate.
They compensate for it. So my house in the Bay Area down to the base of the Grapevine, that's my point. I need to be, I always want to make it down there in one shot without stopping.
Right.
That is 287 miles. That's 287 miles with either AC or the heat on, heated seats or cooled seats on, rolling at speed with traffic. So 85 miles an hour or so, right? Yeah. If Hyundai, or anyone for that matter, makes an EV that can do that, and when I say do that, it might sound aggressive to some people, but though in actuality, and this, those are real world driving conditions on the interstate. That's what people cruise at, right? So if they have an EV that does that, and I can go in and get a sandwich and be out in 25 minutes, 30 minutes with a full recharge or at 80%, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, well, the Ioniq 5 does that, the EV6 does that, the GV60 does that. There are some weird things with those cars, though. Like if you get the high-end stereo system, you don't get wireless CarPlay. I mean, it's like there's always something a little weird where you're like, why not? If you get the lower trim, you get wireless CarPlay because their head unit vendor apparently is different. I don't know, don't care, but it's one of those things where you're like, what? But,
that's weird.
But any of those vehicles would do that trip, no problem. And they charge super fast. Hyundai has one of the faster charging architectures outside of Ultium from GM. The Hummer would do that. But the charging infrastructure is a bit of a problem now. Clearly, the best use case for anybody on these that want to use these vehicles is that you're going to use it within destination and back range. You're going to have a charger at your house. You'll have a level 2 charger. A level 2 charger overnight will recharge any of these
Right.
Like even the Hummer can recharge overnight.
Can you get
Level 2.
level 3 chargers at your home now?
No, you will probably never be able to. It's too
Oh,
many,
really?
it's too many amps and watts. It would have to replace the trunks to your house as well as to your street, probably. It's too much. If you go to the actual, for people who don't know, if you actually go to a DC fast charging station, you see all the fast chargers and they're small and sleek. What you don't see is the building next door that actually handles all the power delivery to those stations. And if you go to any of these places, you will see they look like they're either dumpsters blocked off with a wall or a separate building. That's where the actual like power converters are located, and they are massive. So no, you're not getting those at your house.
So that's a really,
I mean, if you can charge 100% overnight, why would you need to? And the next thing here really is that right now we're all dealing with old battery tech, essentially. I mean, Ultium is pretty new, but it's all based on older formulations. Solid state is the next big thing. And the reason I'm excited for solid state isn't the fact that it has longer range, because it can pack in more power into a smaller space, but the theory that you can still manufacture a 300-mile car, but have a battery that weighs 25% less. You know, reducing the weight of the vehicle is good for everybody. It improves handling, safety, braking distances, all that kind of stuff improves by reducing that weight. And that's coming soon, probably commercialized in the next 5 years. So we still have another generation of cars to get through with this current tech. But like when car makers, I had somebody come to me and they were saying, somebody in my family, extended family, not to be too specific here, but they came and they said, well, the governor of our state said that they're going to not sell gas cars anymore after the year 2030. And I said, well, first off, that's not accurate.
Right.
They're not banning car sales of all, like you can sell a used car if you want.
Right.
But all of these come down from the manufacturers who say they are going to stop making cars by this period, or shifting the majority of their product lines to these things. So even if the states don't say anything, the fact is that if you go down to a dealer, you're going to buy an electric car 90% of the time by 2030, 2035. That's the way the universe is moving. And the great thing, even though I bitched for about 20 minutes about that charging situation, that is a temporary issue.
It is. Absolutely.
I've been reviewing electric cars for a decade now, and I can tell you a decade ago, it is amazing how far we've come. The fact that I'm bitching that I couldn't take my 350-mile range Hummer into the mountains, drive it around in the snow, go back and drive home. I mean, talk about a superficial whine. I mean, it's just not. It's like 10 years ago, I'd be like, do you listen to this guy? What the hell? But no.
Well, but that's listen. That's
we're getting there, and the cars you buy today, as the networks improve, and also everything is moving towards green energy, whether you like it or not.
Oh no!
Listen, some people don't like it, but some people are like, wind causes cancer or something.
No, dude. Well, you have so many people and naysayers out there that don't understand the technology. And
they just want to say no. That's all. That's
it. Well, like, and the other part of it is they have to look at consumer needs, and I think that's a big. I mean, you know me. Listen, I'm a diehard petrol guy. Oh yeah. But I have, and we've talked about this, right? I've got an old Jeep that's kind of on its way out. Yeah. And the next thing I buy, it probably won't be a full EV. Yeah. But odds are it'll be some kind of hybrid or plug-in, because it makes total sense.
It does.
And if I cannot go to the gas station every 4 days or whatever the case is, or every week, and it has that 35 to 40 miles of EV charge, right? But I can still take it and go on my 300 to 500 mile trips and not worry about, running out of fuel or EV. Yeah. That works for me. And I think there was that thing where people will just like, oh no, this is never going to work. And it's like, well, it kind of does.
Yeah. Just a quick finishing on that. And then there's something else I want to talk about. The green power is becoming cheaper. Like the cost of wind and solar, it's coming down, and power companies now, even in Texas, Texas, are installing more panels, and it's not because of government mandate, it's because it's more efficient for them to do that, and they make more money. So that's a good thing. So even in some states which still burn coal, where you're like, I can buy my car, my EV running on coal. Actually, the studies have shown that even if you do buy an electric car, and it is powered somewhat by coal, it's still cleaner than driving a gas car, because the coal plant, yes, it's dirty, but it's generating way more power. So your portion of that coal is actually not as much as burning gas.
Right.
And it's great. Yay. But one thing is that for people like you who say, I just want something that I can just do my errands with. I can go to the store. I can do this. I don't want to have to pay for gas, but I also want to drive 400 or 500 miles because I got to drive to LA and back.
Right.
Got to run to Tijuana for unknown reasons.
Right.
Stuff like that. PHEVs, they're great.
Yeah.
It's for those who don't know, it's a plug-in electric hybrid vehicle. We actually have the Lexus that's just sitting right outside right now. We have the Lexus 450 H Plus, which is
it's a nice truck
version. It's the small one. It's their small crossover. It has 37 miles of plug-in electric range. It's such a small battery. I can plug it into my wall socket and it'll charge overnight. And boom, I got 40 miles every single day that doesn't use a drop of gas. It doesn't use the gas engine unless I tell it to. It'll drive on the freeway with electric power. It's like it's kind of the best of both worlds. And you're kind of buying two cars. But for people who say, well, I don't want to have an electric and a gas, I just want one car, those are options. And there's more coming. The new CX-90 from, which is a 3-row,
which is Mazda. Great, beautiful looking truck.
Looks gorgeous.
I
haven't seen it yet, but I mean in person. But the photos look amazing, and they have a PHEV. Like everybody has these PHEVs, but the fact is that they're not terribly popular. I don't think they sell. I think
I don't understand why that is, because to me
they're kind of a perfect vehicle for people who are in the middle.
Dude, that's the perfect storm for a guy like me. That works because I want. Like I said, I want that range extension. I want to be able to drive 500 miles, 400 miles, whatever the case is.
Yeah.
And if I run out of EV charge, I don't have to worry because I could still just keep putting fuel in it and keep going on my merry way. And then when I find a place with a plug-in station, if I feel like it, right? Again, I don't have to plug it in. Right. If I feel like it, I will. Right.
And
but I'm never stranded.
Like it doesn't use that battery too, because like when you're in full, because I ran this one out completely to zero off the battery. It still uses the battery for its hybrid functions. So it still functions fully as a hybrid.
And that's just it. And won't you still, on a PHEV, won't you still get regeneration?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like you're still going to gain mileage back.
Massive mileage. Yeah. And especially Toyota's slow to go with EVs, but they know hybrids. Their hybrids are very, very good. And their plug-in hybrids are all excellent. Like the Toyota, the RAV4 Prime is absolutely the best RAV4. Now, are you going to do you want to go out and spend $60,000 on a RAV4? Probably not.
No.
Get the Lexus version at that point. But they're really perfect. And the fact that you can plug, if anybody has an outside socket, that's a standard wall socket. You can plug in, charge that, because that's all you need to charge. You don't need to charge a 350-mile range Hummer, Which, and some people don't know that you can get a level 2 charger. You can just plug it into a dryer socket. Like that. That's a level 2 charging port. Yeah, essentially.
But if you say that, then everybody's gonna, right now, because everybody in the EV industry that just heard you was like, no, Ryan, you prick. Now we can't sell on charging.
Kind of the thing to do these days is, instead of having an electrician wire a permanent charger to the outside of your house, you really just have them wire a like a dryer, like was that a 240?
It's a 240.
240, right?
220,
yes. 240. I should know this.
One of them.
Put one of those sockets on the outside of your house, and then you basically can use whatever charger you want whenever you want it. You can be with this, and you say, "Oh, the next car I want to buy a Tesla." Fine. Take off the charger, put the other one on. You don't have to pay for an electrician twice.
Right.
That is ideal. And I feel kind of bad that I don't actually have a fast charger at my house yet. I have a 100-year-old farmhouse. It's all modern electric. It's not that expensive to add, but I don't have a building to put it on. So
the fact of the matter is you also don't own one. Yes, you review them, but you don't own one. That's true. So there's no reason.
I tell you, having the Hummer this week, though, I had spent so much time. Well, and actually, there is a reason. I am spending a fortune on Electrify America stations. They charge so much for that energy,
so interesting question. What did it cost you if you're Electrify America? What does it cost you to recharge a Hummer from dead?
From dead? Well,
or from where you got from 10%.
I'm going to look up actually the email, because they send out emails with your thing.
And this is a level 2 fast charger, correct?
No,
A
this
level
is
3
DC fast charge, which is level 3. They don't actually call it level 3; it's just called DC fast. But
okay,
let's see here. So this is when we had to go to Yakima, so that would be Monday, and we sat in the parking lot for 50 minutes.
Okay,
Charging on that, 52 minutes, 56 seconds. It cost me $47.73.
okay, so it's essentially
that we actually went from 5% of battery up to 61%. We didn't bother filling it because I just needed to get it high enough.
And it costs you So I got news. It's not that much cheaper than fuel.
Well, Electrify America overcharges. They're charging 43 cents a kilowatt hour. And I mean, say that my home cost on that is closer to 4 cents.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So like if you're out there and you're on the road with these things, and again, totally omitting the fact that 90% of the people are going to have fast chargers at their home or plug in at their home.
Right.
That is not that much cheaper than fuel. If you're filling with 87, it's about, I want to say
if you're filling with
30%, 40% cheaper, right?
Yeah. The only thing is that power costs continue to go down, and well, maybe that's not true. They hold pretty steady.
Not this one.
Petrol has a tendency to go up. And
the fluctuation in petrol is obviously going to be a lot more, but it's interesting because I feel like people don't, I think when EVs first came out, everybody was like, I'm going to pay $40 a month for electric. And that's all it's going to cost me to, charge my vehicle for a month. Right. Now at 4 cents a kilowatt hour, might not be too far off. I think we're
4 to 7 cents, depending on where you are in the Seattle area. And most of our power is green. We have some nuclear, we have some, generators like dams, and then we have wind and whatever. We have 2 coal plants, but they're scheduled for closing, so they're going away. So we're pretty green in this state. To wrap this up, I would like to quickly debunk every single thing that somebody has said to me about EVs real quickly. This is the short version.
Who said it? Could you say who said it?
People. This is everything.
Right. Whenever this is in general.
EV, I'm at a not gas station, obviously. I'm at a cafe, or somebody walks up and they're like, oh, that's cool. And I say it's an EV, and they say, oh yeah, but what about? This is the whatabouts.
Right.
So the whatabouts is, I'm just going to pound through these. Manufacturing an EV is dirtier than building a car and running a car for the extent of his life. No, it's not. Actual studies have shown that that's not the case. Oh, but have you seen the mines where they've dug out the minerals for these things? Yeah. Have you ever been to British Steel in the UK? An entire 100,000 acres are steel tubes, bars, gas. Hey, remember Exxon Valdez? Yeah. You don't get a sunshine spill, right. Exxon Valdez, oil is destroying the planet. Whether you like it or not, that's a fact. And yes, carbon mining, whatever, the stuff that they're mining, the lithium and all that, it's not ideal. It's not great. Future technologies are actually, hopefully we'll be getting rid of lithium in the solid states, because I don't think any of the solid states use lithium. They're going for a more environmental battery tech. So that is coming as well. It's taking time. Nothing is immediate. Again, we're dealing with like mining lithium and stuff like that was stuff that we've been doing for a long time. Lithium batteries have been around a very long time.
Well, it's just now they're at the forefront. That's all.
Exactly.
There's a reason
and they're manufacturing a ton of it now. And so we've gone from petrol bad to now, oh, well, this is bad, but it's better. And we're taking these small steps towards better. And then it's like, okay, well, what if the government's going to force you to buy an EV?
They're not.
The government will never force you to buy an EV. You may not be able to find a gas car at a new car lot because they don't make them anymore, but you can always buy a gas car.
Right.
And those are the main ones.
Well, it's because they've only made
all absurd.
Well, when you think about that, that's what everybody says. It's like, well, you're not going to be able to buy a gas car. You know what? They've been making gas cars for well over 100 years. They're not going.
You can still buy a Model T. Nobody has stopped you from buying.
Nobody has stopped. Yeah, exactly. You're fine. You're fine. Don't
and if
freak
we really
out.
Want to get around to it, electric cars existed before gas cars.
Well, and the other part is odds are like you're not going to be alive that long anyway. You're a blip on the overall scope of things. So don't worry about it. Like
as what you always say, Mike, just buy something you enjoy.
That's
and
it.
It doesn't matter what powers it or what you plug into. Wow, it's sounding a little bit more like
it's a different avenue.
Different subject. Yeah, but the at the end of the day,
if it makes you happy,
yeah,
fits your needs, you're good.
If you want to drive something that's 50 years old and burns gas like a mother, you know what? You're still not as bad as an unregulated tanker ship. Those things are awful. Or a cruise ship.
Right. Exactly.
People buy cruises. I see environmental people going on cruises. I'm like, are you kidding me? I just don't go because they're plague infested. But other than that.
Well, dude, listen, thank you. Thank you as always for coming on the podcast and talking new cars and EVs and off-road and everything else. And for those of you out there, if you are looking for a new and used car, go to the Hemmings website, go to Hemmings.com, check out our marketplace and our classifieds and our auctions. I'm guaranteeing we will have something that you love. Also, go to Driving Sports TV on YouTube, check out Ryan's channel. And if you haven't subscribed yet, you need to do so. So, my friend, until next time, I will talk to you soon again. Thanks for coming on, brother.
Thanks. See you next time.
All right. Thanks for listening, folks. And again, please subscribe to the Hot Rod Barbecue podcast. If you're on Spotify, check us out there. Subscribe to it on iTunes. And if you are going to go to YouTube, make sure you go to the Hot Rod Barbecue podcast and hit that subscribe button. And we'll come to you every week.